So I have had a lot of feedback on the article, and it's really, really positive. People seem to really enjoy the article, which is a credit to you guys. I think that tort reform is so necessary in the right way. Medical companies are out of control. These insurance companies profit 2, 3, 4, 500% on people's sickness and illness. And it's outrageous to me that our government in Florida is letting people really get mistreated and hurt and killed solely for the benefit of insurance company profits. And I'm glad we're finally trying to do something about it by educating people with the article.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that no one disagrees that some sort of reform is needed, right? But the reform that we have now, it is not working. And I think that people don't know it. I think that writing this article and getting it out there, really breaking down the reforms that are supposed to be helping and why they're actually not fulfilling their goal is just educating people, other attorneys, people in Florida, about why reform is important, but the correct reform is what's important.
I also think it does a really great job of kind of explaining, we have to look at the purpose of these laws, right? And after a certain time, if they're not holding up to that purpose or that promise we got from the passage of them, well, we got to start questioning them, right? We have 40 years worth of change. We have 40 years worth of promise, but we don't have any real result to show for that. And so it begs the question, are these laws doing what people said they would do? And if not, why do we still have them?
And it's clear they don't, right? Our premiums are the highest in the nation. They clearly are not working.
And I love that, the Florida Bar obviously also thought this was an important topic. They put us as the cover article for this month's issue, which is, a great honor, but also, the cover article also brings more attention. More people are likely to read that article because they're spotlighting it as important.
I think what I know the team and I are honored by is how few cover articles there are for the Bar Journal. There's just a select few. And the fact they picked ours as a cover article shows you how impactful I think this article really is. I think the attention we can bring to the public is going to be important because a lot of the lawyers that read this don't do what we do, and they don't know what we know. And so for them to have their eyes opened on just how poor the current tort reform in Florida is, and really nationwide, is so misunderstood, and mostly because tort reform is created by legislators who are lobbying on behalf of medical insurance companies. And so they have a very myopic, one-sided view of the world, and they're not understanding the harm they're creating, or maybe they do and they don't care, which is really sad to say, but possible. And if we can effectuate good tort reform, I think that benefits everybody, benefits both the insurance companies and the public, because there are good tort reform measures that can be passed. But what we have in Florida is not good.
And, from the beginning, right, the goal or the idea was that, insurance premiums for doctors were too high, right? And then that was passing high costs of healthcare insurance onto the citizens of Florida. And so the idea was, okay, well, these doctors shouldn't be paying super high premiums, and patients, citizens, shouldn't be paying too much in healthcare for not great healthcare. And so the idea is that they want to reduce the cost of healthcare, reduce the insurance premiums by these reforms, thus making it better for everyone, right? And so they enact these different types of legislations as that's the goal. But like Taylor said, now we have 40 years of data. You look back and all of these reforms haven't lowered insurance premiums for doctors, haven't lowered healthcare costs for the citizens of Florida. So what's their point? What are they accomplishing other than saving insurance companies money?
Yeah, and I think another important thing to add is, one of the promises, in addition to lowering cost and helping doctors, kind of alleviate that burden of a crushing premium, was this would attract better doctors, right? That we would get better healthcare in return. Sure, we would limit what happened to injured victims, and that was a sacrifice we were willing to make as Floridians if it meant we got access to better healthcare. And so for that promise to be something that kind of impacts all of us, right? It's rare, in my opinion, for a bar article to impact pretty much every person that it'll come across or that will read it. But this is really a discussion about how these laws have impacted our healthcare as Floridians. And the data shows that it's just letting bad actors or incidents that can be prevented with better reporting and oversight kind of go by the wayside to the benefit of not having to pay out of insurance premiums that are still rising. And so it's very interesting to see not only are these promises to the doctors not being held up, but to us Floridians that gave up some of our rights in exchange for these promises. Well, where's our return of benefit?
Well put, you're right. There is no return of benefit to the citizens. It is a one-sided, bad reform. I mean, I don't know what else to call it other than, a one-sided affair where only the insurance companies have profit. The doctors have been harmed. The people, the citizens of Florida have been harmed. Injured people have been harmed. The reputation of the community in terms of medical care has been harmed. Look at where our hospitals rank in the nation. Look at where our doctors rank in the nation. We are not among nation leaders, even though we should be. And we're not. And a lot of that is because this reform has hurt the people and the doctors. And they're struggling. And the only people benefiting are the legislators making laws, getting paid to put profit into these health insurance companies' businesses.
Something that I think is also worth putting a spotlight on, right, is a lot of times people think like, well, this doesn't affect me. Maybe this doesn't matter as much to me. But then when you kind of start to educate them on the law and really the effects of it, they realize, wow, this would definitely affect me. I think, speaking personally, and I can speak for Taylor as well on this, this is personal because in Florida, lawsuits are limited for me, exactly me. I'm the person, and Taylor is the person who basically, if something happened to us in Florida, medical malpractice, no one could sue basically on our behalf because we fall within that free kill law essentially in Florida. And, that's something that I take personal, that if someone were to medically malpractice on me, that not a single person, not my mom, not my dad, not my fiance, no one would be able to recover. And a hospital or facility gets a free kill. I think a lot of people in Florida do not know that that's the reality. I mean, we get hundreds of calls a year about people in that very scenario calling about their, mother, or father, or son, or daughter. And you have to tell them, I'm sorry, but you can't sue. And they don't understand. What is the purpose of that? Why is this select age group of people who are over the age of 25, unmarried, and don't have children deemed essentially worthless in Florida? There's no monetary value that is put on our lives. And as someone who that applies to, I disagree. I don't think my value is worthless. And I think that my family or friends or fiance would be devastated if something happened to me, and they would want to hold someone accountable, and they should be able to.
Yeah, most states have accountability when someone does something wrong to another person, and it's rare for a state like Florida to say your life is valueless. We don't care. You have no recourse. There's no accountability at all. And it's really shameful. And I think most people don't know it. You're right. We get hundreds of calls that we have to constantly tell people we cannot help them because the state of Florida has deemed their lives valueless. And there is no one that we can hold accountable for the clear, and a lot of these cases are clear malpractice. And it's shameful. It really is.
Yeah, it's frightening to think, my demographic when I go to the emergency room, heaven forbid, is something that if anything goes wrong, separates me from other people, right? The notion that something I check on a box, who knows, single or no children, right? No dependents, that's a death sentence in a lot of ways. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be a scenario where just because you quote unquote are restricted in how a legislative body values you, then your life is nothing after you're gone. And I just don't think that's how the majority of Floridians think. As someone that's grown up here for 3 generations, my family's been here, right? There's been pride in being a South Florida person. There's been pride in having your family and your roots here. To now have a legislative body that's saying, well, that's true as long as you meet certain ticks on a box. I just don't agree with that. And I don't think most Floridians do either.
I agree. Someone born and raised here, I could tell you, when I was younger, the government didn't say you're different. You don't get the same benefits. We don't like this group or that group. Only a special group gets protection from the government. And it's outrageous to me that our current Florida government is doing that. Citizens of Florida don't know it, and they don't realize how many of them fall into that group that cannot be helped, or this group that's not even allowed to sue. And there is no purpose behind it. And I think that's where we started the article, right? It's neither Goose Nor Gander, right? It's not helping the doctors. It's not helping the citizens. It's not helping the patients. It's not helping the administrators or the healthcare workers, of which there's hundreds of thousands in Florida. It is only helping these insurance companies and their very, 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 very wealthy CEOs and CFOs and CEOs. And they're just raking in the money that they're withholding from Floridians by getting these ridiculous laws passed.
And Jed, as someone, that's kind of been practicing and trying these cases for over 30 years, right? You've kind of had a front row seat to each legislative change. And I guess, as a younger associate, I've always wondered, have you noticed those changes instantly? Or, how has this constant tort reform limited your ability to help your clients? You've had a front row seat to it.
Yeah, when I was a young lawyer, medical malpractice wasn't such a thing, right? It was an injury case. It was a personal injury case. It didn't matter if it was a car accident case. Didn't matter if a saw blade wasn't put on right and it was a product liability case, or if someone was injured due to negligence of a healthcare provider, medical malpractice. They were all the same. They had the same rules, same treatments. They were the same. And as my career sort of arced, I saw this change where auto accidents were treated as sort of a quick way to make some money. There were really very few laws. Insurance was required to drive a car now. You can't drive without insurance. However, they determined physicians don't need insurance. They can operate on you with zero insurance in Florida. Whereas you drive to Publix and you're a 70-year-old woman just grabbing some milk, you better have insurance because it's dangerous and you could hurt somebody, but not surgeons. They have no insurance in Florida. What a major change that was. And then they started making these tort reforms that additionally reduced the statute of limitations. They tried to cap recovery and said people's lives simply were not worth more than $500,000. Didn't matter what they did to you. $1 million if they killed you or made you brain dead. It takes $10 to $20 million in someone's lifetime to keep a brain dead child alive and cared for. Between the medicine, the healthcare providers, the doctor visits, the consultations, they've stripped that. They've wiped all of that out. If you're profoundly injured in Florida, they simply wanted you to die. Those caps were overturned by the Supreme Court of Florida, thank God, years ago. But they're back. They're back on the books. They're trying to get them. They lobby every day to limit what a person's life is worth. It is so un-American to say, if you try your best and you really exceed and you work hard and you build a life and a family and a business, that your life just simply is capped like everyone else. There's no difference. You're just valueless. And if you don't have children and you're not married, like you said, then you're really valueless. Your life is a value of zero because no one's allowed to hold those people accountable. And if Floridians knew what Tallahassee was doing over the last 30 years, I think they'd really be pissed. I think it'd be like a real pushback against it. And they simply don't know because it's not said anywhere. No one talks about it. Certainly our legislature is not going to tell the truth about it. And so I'm proud of us that we were able to write these articles to educate. Our issue is we're educating other attorneys, which is good, but we also have to reach a greater mass. And we got to let the people know that their lives mean something and they have value. And the changes over 30 years have helped nobody. The doctors are paying the highest premiums in the country in Florida. Your life has no value. They're allowed to kill you for free. They want to cap what you're worth. All of that was to supposedly help doctors pay for insurance, and it's had the opposite effect. Their rates have got up so high that doctors don't even have insurance in Florida. They just don't. How's that possible?
I mean, the facts are the facts, right? The history of the prices of insurance have not gone down. I mean, that's the fact. You know, the studies have been done. They have not gone down. So it has not made the solution happen. So what's the purpose? You know, I think another large failure is the neurological injury compensation plan, NECA for short, that a lot of people call it. I mean,
You wrote about it in the article.
Correct. It is the exclusive remedy for these types of injuries, right? And it was supposed to limit the lawsuits filed, right? And provide essentially good care for these injured babies and their families for that baby's future, right? And what we've seen happen, the Miami Herald actually did a very good piece on this, and studied and interviewed tons of families who received compensation from NECA. And basically what they found is that, you know, so these families are barred from filing a lawsuit. They're supposed to get compensation from NECA. And basically they are over the years sitting there silently, you know, and privately suffering and have not gotten the funds that they were entitled to because the funds have been mismanaged. And so I think that is really one of the greatest failures, that these children and their families who are supposed to be compensated exclusively through this fund have really just been like left to the wayside in a sense, and have not been provided the proper care at all. And the goal of NECA has not accomplished that for these families at all.
Right. And I like Jed bringing up earlier, kind of our job is to educate the public, right? Especially with NECA and the shortened statute of limitations, the amount of times we get a phone call and it's someone on the worst day of their lives, having something happen to their, God willing, their wife during childbirth or, you know, their son. And it takes time to process these things, right? So someone's not going to know, oh, I have a 2-year statute of limitation, so I better call an attorney the first time something devastating has happened to me. That's not how we operate as human beings. We process trauma. We think about things. We consult our family members. We decide, do we even want to pursue a lawsuit? What should we do? Do we have one? And the amount of times we have to turn down someone who doesn't know that they only have 2 years to process something traumatic and make a life-changing decision on that trauma is crazy. And the same thing with NECA, the amount of families that don't know because their physician is enrolled in this plan and supposedly has to tell them, but the manner in which they inform them, kind of up to the decision of the physician. And a lot of our patients don't know that they are being taken care of by a NECA provider until they're stuck in a NECA situation and realize they have no recovery from something that happened to them.
Yeah, I think, you know, Lauren, in the 9 years you've been with me doing these cases, how many times have we heard them people say to us, we don't file lawsuits. We don't like to file lawsuits, but we feel we have no choice.
Yeah.
1,000 times we've heard it.
It's funny. Everyone thinks that they are a person who wouldn't sue, right? Oh, well, I wouldn't sue. I'm not a litigious person, right? But when something so horrific happens to you or your family, like Taylor said, the worst day of these people's lives, it's not really about being litigious or getting money from I would say 99.9% of people. It's about feeling valid about what happened to them, that something wrong was done, having that feeling reinforced and validified for them, and then making sure through a lawsuit that it never happens to anyone else. And that's really the goal for 99.9% of people when they call us.
They want to be heard, and they want accountability, and they want this not to happen to anyone else. And that is always the thing clients feel the most deeply about. The money has always been secondary to that. Now, in truth, when an injured child like we have now needs help and therapy and occupational therapy, well, then, yeah, it's important that we get them some money so they can handle their medical expenses. But really what they want is to be heard. They want accountability, and they want to make sure it never happens again. And I think, Taylor, you said it so perfectly that Florida seems to diagnose plaintiffs are the problem. Plaintiffs are not the problem. Plaintiffs have never been the problem. The problem is what hurt someone to make them a plaintiff. And it's so misdirected, the current tort reform, that they think plaintiffs are the problem when the problem is the problem, never the plaintiffs.
Absolutely. And I think, these systems that we have now that are kind of behind the scenes settlements where no one has to admit fault. And so no one has to speak on it and no one has to say, hey, we have an issue here. Things aren't being discussed at a hospital system in a manner that allows patients to get care the way they should. Or, hey, this doctor has made the same error on 6 different patients, but hasn't had to admit fault for anything. He's just been able to settle things and make it go away, right? These are situations that create worse healthcare because we're not targeting the real source of the issue. The real source of the malpractice, which we discuss in the article, is the lack of communication, telling someone, yeah, this happened and here's what went wrong. Here's how we're going to treat you to make sure you're comfortable for the rest of your life. Or, you know what, this wasn't a mistake. This was actually just an unfortunate occurrence, but I'm glad you brought it up. Let me explain to you why, right? We need these open discussions to improve healthcare, but to also give patients a peace of mind, right? When we create this wall of silence, this no-fault system where no one is discussing openly what is going on in our healthcare system, we do nothing to improve it.
And I think over time, instead of what it should be, right, is like someone taking accountability for their actions and righting wrongs. It's become like a deny until you're blue in the face, regardless of whether or not, something was done wrong and accountability should be taken. We're going to deny, and defend, because that's kind of the structure that has been set up.
And we know that because we've sued private doctors, we've sued private hospitals, we've sued public hospitals, we've sued the Florida government, we've sued the US government, all for medical malpractice. And they all say the same things. Deny, plaintiffs are the problem. And you can tell they're all connected, no matter who we sue, by these insurance companies in the background, because they're the ones running these defenses. And that's why we hear the same arguments, no matter who we sue. It's the same defenses and the same arguments, because those are the people really pulling the strings. These insurance companies who are profiting from people's misfortune. And it's terrible. And hopefully something gets done about it. And if our article could reach 2 more people, and they could tell 2 people, and they could tell 2 people, maybe we could start to get some headway and make a change for valuable tort reform that helps everybody, and not what they're currently doing, which is crushing everyone, citizens, doctors, nurses, physician assistants, nurse practitioners, and only helping these insurance company CEOs.
And I'm glad you brought up the insurance companies behind the scene, right? Because I know when I'm a third-year associate, right? I came into this job and the first couple of jabs I got from people that don't know what we do is, oh, so you sue doctors for a living. No, I sue insurance companies because unfortunately doctors' hands are tied. Insurance companies are deciding which patients to see, how long they can see them for, what they can bill for, what they can investigate. And so to your point, the system is impacting doctors horribly as well. And no, we're not suing doctors. We don't think they're doing these harms intentionally. Doctors are human. They're part of our community. They're family members, right? And so this notion that plaintiffs' attorneys are looking to sue any doctor they can, well, that's just not the truth. The truth is sometimes mistakes happen, but patients should not have to foot the bill for a mistake, especially one that was preventable. And so it's not about attacking doctors. It just all goes back to how do we improve healthcare, tell insurance companies to back off and let doctors be doctors,
Yep.
and get patients the care that they need in the state.
I think one of the important things that we did in this article is also provide facts. Facts are king, right? Floridians have been told for decades that
lied to.
Fair, you lied to, that, limiting recovery for some groups of people are worth that sacrifice, right? Because it's going to benefit us as a whole. Insurance premiums are going to, be reduced, and the cost of healthcare is going to go down, and the benefit of healthcare, how good your healthcare is going to go up, right? But the facts that don't show that that's the truth, right? Premiums for doctors in Florida continue to be among the highest in the entire nation, even though we have one of the states with the most strict tort reform, right? But our premiums are higher than California, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. And so, ironically, the states that have the stricter reform and have the crisis that is trying to be fixed are the ones who still, after all this time, have the highest premiums. And that's just a fact.
Right. And I don't think it's a misunderstanding. It's a flat out lie to the citizens of Florida. They are just lying to them. The facts do not support them lying. And it's a problem. And it's one of the reasons why people call us to find out what really happened. And, if anyone watching this has questions, they should reach out to us. We are happy to answer questions. You can reach out to our firm at Kurzban Tetzeli Pratt. Speak to one of our lawyers, of which you see all three of them right here. But they could talk to us and get information. And then, unlike the legislature that's going to lie to them, mislead them, and hang up on them, we'll supply them the facts and the information they need so they could talk to their congressman or congresswoman or their senator and say, hey, I was lied to. This is not working. You said there'd be greater access to healthcare. There is not. You said doctors would have lower premiums. They do not. You said there'd be additional treatments for people to make sure no one is left behind. You have been dishonest. We want better care, better treatment, better help. And in the end, we want to be heard. And if people make a mistake, we want accountability. And you're right. We sue insurance companies because they're the ones behind all of this.
Absolutely. And I think the article does a great job of also just starting this discussion, right? As Lauren pointed out earlier, people don't know. Well, if we don't know, we can't openly talk about, we can't change, we can't debate in the open without, backdoor dealings of whoever's lobbying on whatever interest they may have. It's up to us to have these discussions. And I encourage anyone that reads the article and either loves it or absolutely hates it and wants to talk to us and wants to maybe offer a new perspective or give us some new data to consider, please do so. We're not the be all end all on this, but we are three people who've spent a lot of time in this arena and know what it's like to be taking care of the patients that have been failed by our medical system.
Yeah, I've been here my whole life. I love Miami. I love South Florida. I love Florida. I love everything that we have to offer people, but I don't love these lies. And they're really affecting people's lives. And I would beg any congressman or congresswoman to talk to us about it. Certainly, you're not going to get a governor to talk to us because as a coward, but I would love the opportunity to talk to people about this because people need to be informed and we need a greater platform.